On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, the Avs announced their opening day roster, which had Avs Nation a little bit of a panic when that was released. And we will give our season predictions. Yes, the season is here. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli, and with me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you subscribe to our subtext as well. Link to that is in the show notes below. And when you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. Never a better time to sign up for that because, the season is, the Avs don't play till Wednesday, but official, it's already started. But those two games overseas are just like, I want to like them more, Kyle, but we have those games which are like official games followed by preseason games. Why the league continues to do this, I don't know. I wish
spoken by somebody who follows the Rangers in the East. The Devils are the best team in the National Hockey League. It's time to recognize, son.
We will get to that. But on today's episode, we're going to toot our own horn here a little bit over at Locked On Avalanche. If you've been watching the Amazon Prime series, yours truly made a little appearance on that. Interesting. So we'll talk about that. We will get to our predictions because the season is officially underway. So we'll let you know who we think is going to win it all. So we'll do that. But where we're going to start, obviously, is everybody was getting their final roster in. It had to be in by, I think it was 5 o'clock. Is it Eastern or Mountain that they, because I know that the I think it was Eastern that they had at 5 o'clock Eastern that they had to have it in. So you knew the Avalanche were going to get their opening day roster announced, and it was, and there was some slight panic going on, including yours truly, because when you saw it, you were like, well, how does that make sense? Because it's got all your usual suspects on there, obviously, but the names that you kind of look for are those, those fringe guys that, hey, could they make it? Could they not make it? And you knew like Sam Malinsky was going to be on there, and he was. The name I was looking for was Ivan, and he was not on there. So from the forwards, Chris Wagner was on there, Parker Kelly. I'm not going to, announce the basic, not basic, the usual guys. Callum Ritchie, Kivi Ranta are kind of like your depth guys. And that was it. So you were like, I was like, okay, where's Ivan? And then someone had to point out to me, like, Kovalenko's not even there. I'm like, I wasn't even looking for his name because I was just assuming he was on there, and he's not on there either. And then cooler heads prevailed here. And this is all cap shenanigans. And yes, Ivan and Kovalenko are not on this list. They will be on they didn't make it, and they will be on the Wednesday roster. They just are playing this cap game where they're accruing as much cap space as they do this every year. And for now, they're technically sent down, but they're coming back up, and all is right in the universe. We're okay.
And I know that was a big kerfuffle at the announcement, because they didn't allude to that. You had to kind of look into it a little bit. That was not off the initial announcement, but what was on the initial announcement that gave me hope going into 2024 was on that defensive side.
Mm-hmm.
One of those fringe names that you were looking at, Sam Malinsky, you were on the case.
Yeah, man. I mean, it had to be. He had such a good camp. He knew he was on there. And, they list, there's 8 defensemen on there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Ludwig, which you knew was going to be on there. Shillington is on there right now.
I know.
So we can kind of go what we were talking about yesterday, like what's this opening day roster going to look like in terms of like the lines and the pairings. You can still have that conversation about that third pairing. It's got to be Malinsky and DeHaan, you would think, because Shillington didn't really do anything in the preseason to really take that second spot on the third pairing. And Ludwig, I think, is just too new. I don't think they're going to throw him out there on day one. He's only been with the team for like 48 hours. So I think that's where it's going. Would be Malinsky. So he's earned it, but it is nice to see his name on there. And now it's up to him to keep that position and not let anybody like, Shillington take it away from him because of his bad play. That's the only way he can come off of this is if he plays poorly or matchups, which, are always a thing for Bednar.
Yeah. And honestly, you knew what Kovalenko and Ivan, they were going to make an appearance at some point. I was really like, the more camp went on, I was starting like Malinsky looked good and I felt like he could make this spot. And this feels like the first of many for Malinsky, but we've also been fooled with like Newhook. Like, oh, he's got his expected spot and this is how it's going to be for a while, and it just doesn't pan out. So, all right, congratulations. Milestone achieved. You made the opening night roster. Now let's go. Let's build on top of that. And the same thing with Kovalenko and Ivan when they make the Wednesday trip. This is what you want to see. You want to see Kovalenko. He has some NHL games. You kind of got that idea. Ivan, this is your time to shine, bud. And this is all the preseason, all the kind of 75% effort. You're going to see it against Vegas. And so you're really going to get a good test on how this roster is going to look for the rest of the 82 games.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is just the game one roster, but you do look at it as like, okay, like if this is what we have for a little while, are we okay? Because in a little while is probably the month of October, because you did hear from Jared Bednar say that what do I got here? Oh no. That who was it? It's going to be out for the rest of the month of
Lehkonen?
October. Yes, it was Lehkonen. You're right. He's going to be out for the at least the month of October, and he has like a 5-month checkup right towards the end, and then they're going to reevaluate from there. So you okay? Like at least you know that, and you're not going to like game to game be like, is he going to come back this game? Is he going to come back this game? You can pretty much count him out for the month of October. So again, this is kind of you're probably not going to get Landeskog back for October. You're not getting Nichushkin back for October. So these are your guys. These are your guys for October, and then November could be a radical change. It's crazy. It's great how much different the team could look when you get those 3 guys back. Hopefully, get 3 guys back in that month. We don't know, but we can just surmise that. But are you happy with this? With this for a month, the opening month of the NHL season, where you feel like this team can perform well? I mean, you still have your everyday starters. You still have your Nathan McKinnons and Mikko Rantanens and Cale Makars. So yeah, you should be fine.
And it's a good balance of veteran presence. Like Wags made the roster, and he's got NHL games. He's been around a while. And you got DeHaan. Like, you like the balance of the new guys, the fresh face, and the experience that is tagged with them. So I feel pretty okay with this roster because it's one of those that, but what, and like you're putting in your favorite rosters, but this Avalanche team won with Abe Kubel in 2022. Like, they made the roster work, and those pieces worked. And I feel like this is a very similar construction with the depth and the veterans and the balance. I really like this roster for at least a month, and you can see what works, what doesn't, and you could carry those extra defensemen, extra forwards. You could cycle them out when all these players do come in. And you mentioned 3 of the 4 injured names that are officially listed as injured. Tucker Pullman is the other one.
Come on now. But it is going to be interesting to see it's still fascinating to me how the Avs are going to navigate this cap stuff when the big names come back. And yes, even though I don't feel like he is starting day one, what are they going to do with Shillington? How is that going to work out? Because he didn't do much in the preseason. And when do you play him? How do you play him right now? Because he's got to show you stuff in practice to make you feel good about putting him in a game situation. And then what happens if the struggles just continue for that game? You can't take him out mid. I mean, I guess you could bench him and go with 5 defenders if you wanted to, but for that game, you're stuck. And I'm not saying like he's just gonna. It's an automatic that he's gonna perform poorly, but how does he show the coaching staff like you can put me in and we'll be okay? Where's the opportunity outside of practice? You got to risk it putting him into a game. When is that game? I don't know. I don't even know if it could happen if Malinsky, just like you said, keeps this position and doesn't give it up. Then it's really a non story. But I'm going to be kind of watching that just from the sidelines. It's not the main story for the Avalanche right now, but it's one of those little kind of detailed stories that people like you and I will just kind of like watch from afar and on the sidelines and like, what is that? Checking up on the Shillington case. Anything going on with that?
Well, it's almost like Bednar is carrying the preseason into the regular season with practice. Like he said, hey, these roster spots, you're going to play and earn these. I mean, in practice, you want that shot. If you feel like you could do better than that line that was out there, that third pairing for the defense, if you think you could do better, show me in practice. But it gives a little bit more excitement instead of your daily, this is practice, roll in, roll out. Bednar's keeping the intensity going and challenging for those spots. So this is something to keep a look on like through the season, because I feel like he's been preaching that message of fight for these roster spots. Nobody's earned their spot. And I feel like he's continuing it through the year to keep these guys going.
Yeah. And the Miles Wood one is something to watch too, because I feel like he's fine right now, but year 2, I just get a vibe that if he doesn't kind of show up, he might be a Bednar doghouse type of guy. Mm-hmm. So that's another guy we might have to keep eyes on.
Yeah, you're not seeing him like as publicized with the rest of this like content day stuff, and it's just like, oh yeah, and Miles Wood. So he's already kind of getting that vibe. And it's another thing we talk about the Roaring 20s line, knowing how to work together. If they don't, he could be the first one out.
Yeah, that's. I think they're just going to give him the start of the season opportunity. Go with your boys on the Roaring 20s line, and then if that just takes care of itself, then the Avalanche are all the better for it. If it's a struggle, he'll probably be good for the month. Again, he'll probably be fine for the month of October. But that's a good chunk of games to be like, okay, preseason just was what it wasn't really in my game. If you come out of October fine, then away we go. We're still in a good situation. If he struggles for the month of October, maybe there's some questions that arise when it comes to Miles Wood. I hope not, because I love the guy. I love watching him play. He just goes all out. I like that aspect of it. Some people don't, and I get that too. But I'm going to put my money behind Miles Wood that things will be okay in the long run.
Yeah, for Miles Wood, Shillington, those names are coming back in November. These are, you want to try, you want to push, because if not, there are going to be some very notable names being shipped out in packages in November.
We'll see. And then obviously those young guys. This is a different looking team and a younger looking team for the Avs with your Kovalenkos and especially Callum Ritchie. So all eyes are going to be on those guys. And this is kind of exciting being an Avalanche fan, seeing a roster like this. I think the Avalanche just went all in saying like, these are the younger generation that we have. We're going to give them a solid opportunity to start this season. You don't see that a lot from the Avalanche. They like their veterans and they kind of give them the inside track when it comes to a position. They didn't do that this year. Those 4 guys that we threw out with Malinsky, Ritchie, and Ivan and Kovalenko, they were like, yeah, all 4 of you guys, go for it. I love it. I absolutely love that they went that route.
It's something we've been asking for quite some time.
You're right. Absolutely right. So what does this all mean for what we feel and how we feel the Avalanche are going to do this season? It's prediction time, sir. So we're going to take our first quick break, and then we're going to get our official predictions, which you can hold us to for the duration of the season. We'll do that coming up next. We're going to hear from FanDuel, and NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return over on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you can get started with $200 in bonus bets, and you get those bonus bets guaranteed whenever you place just a $5 bet. How can you beat that deal? That's over at FanDuel.com. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Head over to FanDuel.com right now. All right, so let's get to some predictions, sir. So I always enjoy doing this because I just love to see. I'm horrible at this stuff. Because I always go with like I like to try to be a little bit different. I don't want to just give this is the best team in the East, this is the best team in the West. They're gonna meet in the Stanley Cup. That's too boring. Everybody does that. And if you remember my pick from last year, do you remember what it was? I had the Avs going, but I had them going up because I'm one for stories. That'd be a great story.
Was it the Leafs?
No, it was the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, that's right.
I thought Kyle Dubas going there, he'll turn over every single stone to try to bring the best team there and all that. I didn't think they were going to be the best team in the league, but I thought they could be a playoff team. And then once you get in the playoffs, anything is possible. I thought they could be that team that just went on a run. Clearly that didn't happen. They had a pretty good season. They made a run for it towards the end to get a playoff spot, but it was not to be. So I like doing stuff like that. And people, if you want to call me on that, feel free. But I took a chance. I'm not just going to give you, the two best teams. Where do you want to start here? I mean, we'll kind of like go through divisions, who we think is going to be playoff teams. We'll do the conference finals, and then we'll obviously give our Stanley Cup prediction. So we can start in the East if you want.
If you want to start in the East?
I don't care.
You know what? This is the time.
Okay.
I'm really high on the New Jersey Devils coming out of the East.
Sure you are.
And just because of what they've been putting together, the goalie play in their first two regular season games officially have been stellar from their 1A, 1B. And it's kind of like a shot across the bow. Okay, Rangers, you're the next up. Like, show us something. So I feel like it's going to be down to those two really through the rest of the year. It's going to be New Jersey, New York, and it's going to be a fantastic thing to watch if you're a fan of hockey in the East.
So do you think that's like going to be like the conference final? I don't know how that would
I don't know if it
depend on how standings go and stuff like that, obviously.
Yeah, I just feel like those are your hot teams, because other than that, you got Carolina, which everybody knows how I feel about that team. And you got Toronto. Boston's not it. So we can forget about that.
Yeah, I feel like in the East, your two wild card teams are probably coming out of the Atlantic, because you're in the Metropolitan. You're probably gonna have the Devils, you're probably gonna have the Rangers, and you're probably gonna have the Hurricanes as 1, 2, and 3. I'm just threw the Devils out first. I don't necessarily think they're going to finish first in that division, but I think those are your three finalists for the playoffs. In the Atlantic, it's a little bit more muddy, because the Maple Leafs are a playoff team. Obviously, the Panthers are a playoff team. The Bruins are a very good team. You would think that they should make it. And then you have the two wild card spots. I don't think anybody in the Metro can. I mean, maybe the Islanders, but the Flyers no, the Penguins no, the Capitals no,
and
the Blue Jackets no.
I'm not so quick on saying no on the Flyers.
I don't think they have it. Like,
I think if an East darling might be the
okay,
Flyers to make a run or at least
okay,
a little bit of a push out of the
mm-hmm.
East, that's going to be my dark horse out of the East would be the
Okay.
Philly Flyers.
Yeah, I like stuff like that. But I don't think they can last. But hey, a Tortorella run team, you never know.
It's a Tortorella team that he's been there a while, and they're starting to believe in what they're doing in Philly because that was a abrasive start in Philly, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're everybody's kind of falling in line and understanding where this is going,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really committing to the youth in Philly. I think they know what they're doing.
It's all about the start for them.
Yeah,
If they get out to a good start and they can ride that for a while, but if they get out behind the 8 ball, if they get out to like a Buffalo Sabres,
yeah,
0-2, like I know it's just 0-2, but if Flyers get out to a rough start and a rough month, they don't have the ability to play catch up for the remainder of the season.
yeah.
So if they're ahead of the game and then they maybe fall back down to a little bit of earth for a little while, maybe they can play with that. But I like that pick. That's a good pick. But I mean, for the playoff teams, I mean, in the Atlantic, if you have the Panthers, if you have the Bruins, if you have the Maple Leafs, those are 3 playoff teams. And then you have the Lightning. You would have to think the Lightning, they're not where they once were, but are they still a good team? Yeah. So I think that's one playoff spot. And who's your other one? We were talking about this a couple weeks ago between the Red Wings, the Senators, and Buffalo. Yes, I know Buffalo started 0-2, but it's only 0-2. So I got 80 games to go. God, man, I want to say Red Wings,
You know
but
what?
I'm not confident in that. It's crazy.
And just for the sake of things, I'm going to say Senators. You can
Yeah.
take the Red Wings. I'll take the Senators this year.
Okay. All right. So that's kind of who we got in the East. In the West, we've talked about, the Central, obviously. You're going to have the Avs, the Stars, and the Predators probably as your 1, 2, 3. In the Pacific, you're going to have Edmonton. You're probably going to have the Golden Knights probably should be a playoff team, even though I think Vegas is they're good, but are they head and shoulders above? No.
We'll
I don't
find
think
out
so.
Wednesday where this team sits.
Well, we'll see.
But it's got that feel of like that window's already closing in Vegas.
Could be. But I still think they have enough to be a playoff team.
Yeah.
And Vancouver is a playoff team too.
Mm-hmm.
So where's your wild cards come from? Anybody in the Central? Winnipeg, they might take a step back this year, but still, I think they'll fight for it. I like Utah. You know that I like Utah. I maybe that is a stretch, but I think Utah is my Flyers for you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In the West. And then your other, I think you get one wild card from each division. I'll go with Utah, and I'll go with the Kings. I'll say the Kings. Yeah. Those would be my 2 wild card teams.
My 2 wild card in the West. You know what? I'm going to go way left field on this one because not a single word has been mentioned of this team. I think the Blues might be weird and make a run as a wild card.
Okay.
Because they are deceptively quiet. And at some point, like even the Ducks are loud and we know what they're going to be. It's like the Blues know something we all don't know. So I'm just going to roll with the Blues.
Okay.
Coming out of the Central. And I'm going to go Seattle.
Seattle's a weird team.
I feel
really, really weird team. Yeah.
They're up and down. And I just have a weird vibe that Seattle's going to get it right.
I don't like the moves that they made in the offseason, but they have a brand new coach.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what you need to, and they got him not in the middle of the year, during the offseason. So he can come in, he gets familiar with the team, put his system in, and maybe it works and maybe it clicks. So that could be kind of an outside track pick. So I'll have to wait and see. Not completely sold, but if he can get if the players that they got fit with this guy's system, then they'll be okay enough to maybe push for a spot. We'll see. I don't know. That'll be a mystery. As far as playoffs go, we're not going to throw out divisions, or not division, the rounds and stuff like that. But who could be your conference finals and do your East? Who could? I mean, could it be Devils and Rangers for you? I don't know how that would work out. It could possibly, but that's always tough to predict based on seeding and everything.
Yeah, I would say either it's going to be the Leafs could push just because
Oh
they're,
man,
but
we'd love to
it's
see it, but
going to be Devils, and just however seeding it could be Rangers, Leafs, but
right.
it's going to be the Devils pushing there.
Okay. So are you putting the Devils in the final?
You betcha.
Okay. In the East, I mean, it's so tough to go 3 years in a row, but the Panthers are a really good team.
Yeah.
But I think they can go as far as, I mean, they could definitely easily go back, not easily, but they could go back. But for the sake of this and that, like I said, that being boring, I will put the conference final in the East as the Panthers. I think they can make it that far, and the Rangers. And I'm gonna put the Rangers in the final.
Okay.
I feel like I do this a lot, but I'm gonna do it. And then out west, what are you looking at here?
This is where it gets very interesting. This is where it's tough. It's very tough, and it's honestly it's tough on both sides of this. Like, this is going to be a very good year of hockey, and I cannot wait for this to get really going. My heart of hearts, I want this to be a 2001 type, like, roll it back. Colorado all the way, especially like if Landy comes back. Right. And they start buying into it, and it's win-1 for Landy, and you kind of like rally the troops around that. I have a feeling this team I've mentioned this to you off air. Like, this team's got that certain magic in the air. Like, I have that feeling. I would like to. You know what? I'm just going to go for it. I'll put the Avs up there. I have the Avs taking down Edmonton in the conference final.
Yeah, Edmonton is the hot pick this year, and that always happens. The team that loses in the cup final the following year is kind of like
just because Edmonton, because of the way seeding works, they just don't have the hardest road to get there. So
I think if you're gonna ask me who's the clear-cut division winner, it is Edmonton by far. All the other divisions, you can make an argument for who could win here and there. The division outright, but I think for Edmonton, it's theirs for the taking for the division. But I don't necessarily feel like they can make it as far as they did last year. And I host Locked On Avalanche. Of course, I'm going to want the Avalanche to go every single year. I think it's tough to put them in right now just because of the uncertainty. If we started this season with Val Nichushkin and Gabe Landeskog, and even if Lehkonen was out for what he's going to be out for the first month, but he's coming back probably in November, and you can live with that. And you knew Landeskog, what was no lingering effects from the knee injury. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of feel like I might go that route because I think that is a very strong team. But I think there's just so much uncertainty around those guys that are out right now, where it's tough for me to put them. I still think they can make a run. They still have a very good team. Do I think they can make the conference final? Yeah. So I'll put them there. I'll put the Avs in the conference final right now. And a team that I feel like everybody just has given up on and just feel like they're like a one-year wonder is Vancouver. Vancouver's a really good team, people. And I think because I don't say they necessarily came out of nowhere last year, but they really kind of exceeded expectations. People are kind of feeling like they might come back down to earth. It's still a very good team, but not go on a run that they went last year for the regular season. I think they can be that team. Now, again, I said Edmonton is going to win that division, and they should. But when you get into the playoffs, I think Vancouver has their number. So you said you wanted a rematch of the 2001 between the Devils and the Avs.
I see where you're going.
I'm going rematch in 1994 of Rangers and Vancouver, and I think the Rangers pull it out again and beat them a second time in the Stanley Cup final. So I'm going New York Rangers. If it's not the Avalanche, I'm going New York Rangers over Vancouver.
And I will give you one counterpoint to close this out on the Avalanche. We are so accustomed to them doing the Avalanche way, but they play better as the underdog. They won the
Yeah.
cup when you really didn't know what the team was going to do, and they found magic. And I feel like the Avs are the underdogs again. Like, you don't know what this team's going to do, and that's usually when the Avs outperform and they really show out. When they're
Yep.
not expected to be at a level, they have to fight to get to a level, and that's how they won the cup, was fighting and believing in what they're doing. And I feel like that gives the Avs a better edge this time around. Like,
Yeah.
usually I'm very hesitant on putting the Avs all the way in the cup because I am an Avalanche fan, but there's just something about this team and the energy around them that I believe this year.
It's amazing how that last team that won the cup was not the favorite, even though that team was so good.
Mm-hmm.
It was just who they were going up against. Back-to-back Stanley Cup champion is kind of naturally going to feel like they're the favorite. I get that, but that team was incredible,
Yeah.
incredible. And the Avs are a great team right now, but are they that team heading into the season where like, yep, head and shoulders above everybody else? They're not. That's okay, but they're still up there, still up in the conversation. And we'll see how this year plays out. If everything goes the way it should go, and you don't have any setbacks with anybody, the Avs are right there, right there. So that's what we'll say for now. We did mention Gabe Landeskog and him and his return and how big it is. We saw him in the Amazon Prime series Face Off. You also saw or heard these guys. How'd that happen? Let's talk about that. Wrong one. This one. There we go. I got so excited we're going to be talking about that. So I was just
started all over.
Just hitting random buttons. We're going to talk about Indeed, and we're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. It's the hiring platform that you need when you're searching for employees. It's your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of Locked On Avalanche will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support Locked On Avalanche by saying you heard about Indeed on this very podcast. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. And if you need to hire, you need Indeed. I hit the right one on the way out, so that's good. So we knew this series was coming. Very excited that this thing was going to be on Amazon. Behind the scenes look of kind of what goes on with specific players. We knew Gabe Landeskog was going to be on it with an episode, and then when they released the episodes, you knew he was going to be with Quinn Hughes and Jacob Trouba, entitled The Captains, and just follow them around for an episode. So we'll talk about the episode. Like it was, I thought it was great. Far, I haven't finished it yet. I jumped right to that episode. I watched that one you don't have to watch these in order. I jumped right to that one, and then I started it back over. So I've got that episode, which is episode 4, right? The Landeskog one. And then the first 2, first one's a really good episode with William Nylander and Pastrnak and their friendship and that series, which is crazy. Something happened. That's the series where Pastrnak scored the overtime game 7 winner when he just bolted by everybody. The crazy thing in that, I know I'm getting a little bit sidetracked, but it's just amazing to me. He should have been out on the ice the shift before, but he took the tape off of his stick. And he's like, I can't go out. I have to retape my stick. Stuff like that. It's so those little details that if he was out there, who knows what would have happened in that game. That's phenomenal stuff. That's the stuff that I wanted in this series. And so far you're getting it. But with the Landy episode, you're following 3 guys, and the episode is about like 50 minutes long. So you're not getting a ton of content just on him, but you got enough. And I thought it was cool. I thought it was a good behind the scenes episode.
Yeah, it's a good look at the mentality of getting back to it and like how you handle the captaincy. I think it's I love every bit of this series. Like this is
Yeah.
going to be probably a rewatch when everything comes back out.
Yeah. I really hope they do a season 2 and more episodes. Maybe first season you just throw 6 out there, get field. Apparently it's doing fantastic.
Yeah.
In Canada, I guess it's number 1, which is no surprise. And even in the US, I think it's number 3 or 4 right now, which makes it all the more crazy that so many people have heard our voices. Because there is a part in the Landeskog episode right towards the end. There was only like 4 minutes left. And nobody said this to us. Like, we didn't know this was going to happen. And I'm just watching the episode. I'm just sitting there watching the episode. And they were talking about Quinn Hughes. And then they cut to Landeskog. And I'm just watching it. And I'm like, that sounds like me. And then you start talking, and I'm like, well, that is the Southern Draw Sullivan right there. And I rewound. I'm like, they took our episode and they clipped just a couple of phrases from each of us. But not only that, he was listening to it in his car. Yo, like I've been doing podcasting for like 20 years now, and I've done some cool stuff in the podcast world. That is at the top right now for me personally. Is crazy. I was just rage tweeting good rage tweeting everybody or texting everybody like, this is incredible. It's awesome.
Like for me, being a kid from Alabama who grew up idolizing the Avalanche from like 96 on, where my entire world was around hockey and the Avalanche, for something I did that has to do with the game of hockey to reach the captain's ears, monumental for me. It's incredible. But then you think, oh God, that's the episode where I'm talking about Landeskog. It's probably the time where he's not going to come back. I will never live that down. But I speak with my heart, and
right.
it's one of those like I just felt like it wasn't going to happen, and in the moment.
Yeah.
If this is something that Landeskog hears and says, I'll show you, absolutely. There's a
And we can thank
million
you
people who
for that.
want to show me.
Yeah, right.
So go right ahead, Landy. But I'm just honored that he took the time and gave us a listen. And we're expecting that sound check any day now, Landy.
No, but it is the episode where Chris McFarland was set to give his end of the year press conference, and we knew that Landeskog was going to be there. You were not the only one thinking like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
So, and you know, if you're going to do this, you need to speak your truth. You can't just blow smoke and you know, everything is sunshine and everything's going to be fine. You were not the only one who was thinking that. It was in the back of everybody's mind. And that's kind of like where that the episode or that he was listening to, it kind of made it seem like he was driving to Ball Arena to do that press conference. And he even said, after you made your comment, he even said, I'm not where I want to be in my treatment, in my return. So yeah, like if people want to say that about you, then that's fine. But they were thinking it too. And it's funny because then they show the press conference, and I don't know who it was, you know, kind of introduced him and immediately was like, nope, Gabe is not retiring. This is not a retirement speech. And you got laughter and everything. But they used you and us as to introduce kind of that part of the story of saying like, hey, is this really going to work for him? And you know, we're or you personally are the one that people are looking to as being like, how could you say that? Like I said, if you're going to do this, if you want to get into this world, you need to really speak what's on your mind. And if you felt that way, you need to say it, and you did, and don't apologize for it.
Yeah, so. I think throughout my entire career in podcasting, I don't think I've ever been accused of sugarcoating. So, and guess what? It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop.
Yeah. So, awesome moment though. It was really cool to listen, and the fact that I didn't know it was happening, and then I just hear my voice on the television on this series. I'm like, I messaged you. I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
we're in this thing. Can you believe
It,
this?
and the moment that made it for me when I got home and I showed my daughter,
Yeah.
the look that she gave me, she's like, "Dad, he's listening to you."
Yeah.
And like, I don't think I'm ever going to forget that moment for the rest of my life.
I had a different take with my wife, who's kind of minorly obsessed with Gabe Landeskog. So she feels like some now we're like, bros, and I can just call him up. Like, no, I still can't do that. So.
Yeah, I've eliminated ever getting to be a bro with Landy for a while. Oh,
Again.
and yeah, there you're back. You froze up for a little bit.
All right. No, that's the closest I'm going to get is being bros with him. So that's it. All right. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode, everybody. So one more day to go, and we will do a crossover tomorrow with Joey over at Locked On Stars. Figured that'd be the best way to start off the season, day one for both those teams, the two best teams in the division. So that'll be tomorrow. But for today, thank you everybody for tuning in and making this your first listen. That is always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. And guess what? You just got through another day and we're one day closer. Sidney Crosby being in an Avalanche sweater.
For Miles Wood.